Eleanor Wright stood at the spaceport terminal, looking down at the holographic invitation in her hand. The shimmering text glowed against her work-stained fingers. Your presence is requested aboard the Celestial Dawn for an evening of networking and innovation discussion. The sender was Galactic Nautical Industries, the largest producer of luxury space vessels in the solar system. She tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear and glanced at her reflection in a nearby window. Her practical jumpsuit designed for long hours in the engineering lab was clean, but worn at the elbows. Smudges of engine grease marked her hands, despite her attempt to scrub them clean. Eleanor hadn't had time to change after receiving the last-minute invitation while finishing tests on her newest propulsion system. They want to talk business, they get me as I am, she murmured to herself, straightening her shoulders. The Celestial Dawn was hard to miss, even among the other ships docked at the orbital platform. It gleamed like a polished diamond against the blackness of space, its sleek hull reflecting the blue glow of Earth below. At over 300 meters long, the yacht was less a vessel and more a floating palace, rumored to have cost north of $200 million to build. Eleanor approached the boarding gate where a young man in a crisp white uniform looked her up and down with thinly veiled disdain. Service entrance is on the lower deck, he said without checking his list. Eleanor held up her invitation. I'm a guest, Eleanor Wright. The attendant's eyebrows rose slightly. He checked his tablet and frowned. Very well, Miss Wright, please, follow me. The interior of the Celestial Dawn made even the spaceport's luxury terminal look modest. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings high enough to forget they were on a spacecraft. The floors were real wood, not synthetic, polished, to a mirror shine. Art pieces that belonged in museums adorned the walls, secured behind nearly invisible force fields. The attendant led Eleanor to the main lounge where about 50 people mingled. Every one of them wore clothing that probably cost more than Eleanor's. Monthly rent. Women draped in shimmer silk gowns that changed color with their movements. Men in tailored suits with subtle tech enhancements that displayed their stock portfolios or company logos when they wished to impress a conversation partner. Would Madam like me to take her work clothes? The attendant asked, making it clear he thought she had made a serious error in judgment. No, thank you, Eleanor replied. I'm comfortable as I am. Left alone at the entrance to the lounge, Eleanor took a deep breath and stepped forward. The conversations nearest to her stuttered and paused as people noticed her. She heard whispers. Begin immediately. Who invited the mechanic? Perhaps she's here to fix something? Eleanor ignored them, walking toward the refreshment table. She picked up a glass of sparkling water, avoiding the alcohol. She needed a clear head tonight. A tall man with silver hair approached her, his smile not reaching his eyes. I don't believe we've met. Victor Harrington, CEO of Galactic Nautical Industries. He offered his hand. Eleanor Wright, she said, shaking it firmly. And what brings you to our little gathering, Miss Wright? Are you accompanying one of our guests? Before she could answer, a woman in a red dress joined them. Victor, darling, who's your new friend? She looks like she took a wrong turn at the engine room. The woman laughed, a sound like tinkling glass. Allison Pierce, meet Eleanor Wright, Victor said. Ms. Wright was just about to explain her presence. Here. Eleanor smiled politely. I received an invitation to discuss business opportunities. Allison's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Business with G&I? How unexpected. She looked Eleanor up and down. And what business might that be? Janitorial services? Victor chuckled. Now, Allison, be nice. I'm sure Ms. Wright has talents we're unaware of. A chime sounded, indicating the yacht was preparing to depart. The guests moved toward the observation deck, a massive transparent dome offering unobstructed views of space. Eleanor followed, keeping to herself as the Celestial Dawn smoothly detached from the spaceport. Earth fell away beneath them, the yacht's engines nearly silent as they powered up. The course display showed they would be making a leisurely circuit of the lunar colonies before returning to Earth orbit by morning. Eleanor found a quiet spot near the edge of the dome. From here, she could observe the other guests while taking in the view. The stars were brilliant without Earth's atmosphere to dim them. and the moon grew larger in the viewport as they approached. A man with a neatly trimmed beard sidled up next to her. "Amazing ship, isn't it? The propulsion system alone is worth the price tag." Eleanor nodded. "The right propulsion matrix. Efficient, but I see room for improvement." The man's eyes narrowed. "Gregory Duncan, Apex Engineering. And you are?" "Eleanor." "Right." A flash of recognition crossed his face, quickly replaced by calculation. "Right. Any relation to Wright Aerospace Technologies? You could say that?" Gregory's demeanor changed subtly. He moved closer. "I've actually been working on some propulsion designs myself. Very innovative stuff." "Is that so?" Eleanor said, watching him carefully. "Yes, a complete reimagining of the current matrix system. It would reduce fuel consumption by nearly 30%. Eleanor tilted her head. "Interesting approach. Similar to the one I submitted patents for last month." Gregory's smile faltered for just a moment. "Great minds, as they say. If you'll excuse me, I see someone I must speak with." He disappeared into the crowd just as Victor Harrington's voice boomed across the observation deck. The CEO stood on a small platform, glass in hand. "Friends, colleagues, esteemed guests, welcome aboard the crown jewel of the GNI fleet. Tonight, as we sail among the stars, we celebrate human ingenuity and the power of vision." Applause rippled through the crowd. The Celestial Dawn represents the pinnacle of aerospace engineering, the most advanced civilian vessel ever constructed, Victor continued, his chest puffed with pride. Eleanor noticed a slight vibration under her feet, almost imperceptible, but definitely there. Her engineer's instincts kicked in immediately. That wasn't normal. Victor was still speaking. "We at GNI believe in pushing boundaries, in redefining what's possible." "Excuse me," Eleanor called out, drawing stunned looks from nearby guests. "You might want to have someone check the starboard gravitational stabilizers. There's a harmonic imbalance developing." The room fell silent. Victor stared at her, mouth slightly open. Allison Pierce laughed loudly. "Perhaps we should all take engineering advice from, what was your name again, dear?" "The stabilizers were calibrated before departure," Victor said stiffly. "I assure you everything is functioning perfectly." Eleanor shrugged. "Your ship." "Your call." "Indeed it is," Victor replied coldly. "Now, as I was saying before being so rudely interrupted." The guests turned their attention back to Victor, but Eleanor noticed several glancing at her with curiosity. A server approached with a tray of champagne flutes, deliberately bypassing Eleanor. She didn't mind. The night was still young and she had plenty of time to observe. After all, that was why she had come. Above them, the moon grew larger in the viewport, its cratered surface coming into sharp detail. The Celestial Dawn continued its journey, blissfully unaware that the woman they were all ignoring held its fate, and the fate of everyone aboard, in her grease-stained hands. The vibration beneath Eleanor's feet grew stronger as the evening progressed. She watched as the wealthy guests ignored the subtle signs of trouble, too caught up in their conversations about stock options and vacation homes on Mars. Dinner was announced an hour after departure. The guests made their way to the grand dining hall, a room that could comfortably seat 100 people beneath a ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the space outside. Right now, it showed the lunar surface growing larger as they approached. Eleanor found her place card at the far end of the table, wedged between an empty seat and a young man who introduced himself as a junior marketing executive. He seemed more interested in his communication device than talking to her. The waiters brought out the first course, a delicacy from Europa's hydroponic gardens. They served everyone except Eleanor. She waited patiently, watching as others began eating. Finally, a flustered server noticed the oversight and hurriedly placed a plate in front of her with a mumbled apology. Victor Harrington sat at the head of the table, with Allison Pierce to his right and Gregory Duncan to his left. They talked loudly about the latest advancements in space technology, making sure their voices carried down the table. "The new Harrison-Bosch method for fuel synthesis is revolutionary," Gregory announced. "My team has been developing applications that could increase efficiency by 25%. Eleanor took a bite of her food, listening carefully. The Harrison-Bosch method was based on her early research. She had abandoned it after finding critical flaws in the approach. Sounds impressive, she called down the table. But have you addressed the molecular breakdown at high temperatures? The Harrison-Bosch method becomes unstable above 4,000 Kelvin. The conversation stopped. All eyes turned to Eleanor. Victor cleared his throat. I wasn't aware the catering staff had such extensive knowledge of advanced propulsion systems. Laughter rippled around the table. Eleanor smiled. I read a lot in my spare time. Well, perhaps you should stick to whatever it is you actually do, my dear, Victor said with a patronizing smile. This vessel represents the pinnacle of human engineering. I assure you, all potential problems have been addressed by actual experts. As if to contradict him, the ship gave a slight lurch. The glasses on the table clinked against each other. A few guests looked around nervously, but Victor waved his hand dismissively. Just a minor adjustment as we enter lunar orbit, he explained smoothly. Nothing to worry about. The conversation turned to other topics, but Eleanor noticed Gregory, Duncan watching her with new interest. When the main course arrived, he excused himself from his seat and made his way down to the empty chair beside her. You know about the Harrison-Bosch method, he said quietly. Not many people would catch that flaw. Eleanor cut her synthetic steak. Like I said, I read a lot. I've been reviewing some interesting work lately, Gregory continued. A new approach to gravitational stabilization that could revolutionize yacht design. The writer calls it the Wright matrix. Eleanor's fork paused halfway to her mouth. And what do you think of this Wright matrix? Gregory leaned closer. I think it's brilliant. So brilliant that I'm presenting it to the board next week as my own work. Eleanor's face remained calm, but her grip tightened on her fork. That seems risky. What if the real inventor finds out? Gregory laughed. Eleanor Wright is a recluse. No one even knows what she looks like. By the time she discovers what happened, I'll have secured the funding and patents will be in progress. Fascinating strategy, Eleanor said. Not very ethical, though. Ethics don't build billion-dollar companies, my dear, Gregory replied, patting her hand condescendingly. But I admire your simple moral code. It's refreshing. He returned to his seat at the head of the table, leaving Eleanor to finish her meal in silence. As dessert was served, Victor rose for a toast. To innovation and the future of space travel, he declared, raising his glass. The guests applauded. As the clapping died down, Gregory stood up. If I may, he said, I'd like to share some exciting news. Next week I'll be presenting a groundbreaking new propulsion system to the GNI board, a system that will make this beautiful yacht seem like an antique rocket in comparison. More applause. Victor looked surprised but pleased. Perhaps our mystery guest would like to offer her expert opinion, Allison called out, pointing at Eleanor with her wine glass. The guests turned to stare at her once again. I think, Eleanor said carefully, that Mr. Duncan should be very careful about claiming credit for other people's work. Gregory's smile faltered. Before he could respond, Victor stepped between them. Now, he said. Let's keep things friendly. I believe our uninvited engineering expert has had enough attention for one evening. I was invited, Eleanor corrected. A clerical error, no doubt, Victor replied. He approached Eleanor with a full champagne glass. But since you're here, you might as well enjoy the amenities. As he reached her, Victor stumbled slightly. The contents of his glass splashed across the front of Eleanor's jumpsuit. Several guests gasped. Others tried to hide their smiles. Oh, dear, Victor said without a hint of sincerity. How clumsy of me. Eleanor stood, champagne dripping from her clothes. If you'll excuse me, I need to clean up. Of course, Victor said, not bothering to apologize. The staff facilities are on the lower deck. Eleanor left the dining hall, followed by the sound of muffled laughter. She didn't head toward the lower deck, however. Instead, she made her way through the ship's corridors until she found a door marked Engineering Authorized Personnel Only. The vibration she had felt earlier was stronger here. Eleanor placed her hand against the wall, feeling the rhythm of the imbalance. She needed to see the engine room. The door was locked with a biometric scanner. Eleanor pulled a small device from her pocket and held it against the panel. The light turned green, and the door slid open. Inside, displays and control panels lined the walls of a small monitoring station. Through a window, she could see the main engine room where the massive propulsion system hummed with power. A man in an engineer's uniform looked up from a control panel, startled by her entrance. "You can't be in here," he said, standing up quickly. His name tag read Sam Monroe, Chief Engineer. "The starboard gravitational stabilizer is out of alignment," Eleanor said without preamble. "It's creating a harmonic vibration that's growing stronger. If it's not corrected soon, it could cause a catastrophic failure when you initiate the lunar orbit maneuver." Sam frowned. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "My name is Eleanor Wright, and your ship is in trouble." Sam's eyes widened slightly at her name, but his expression quickly turned skeptical. "Eleanor Wright, the engineer?" "Right, and I'm the Emperor of Mars." He laughed. "Look, lady, I don't know how you got in here, but this is a restricted area. The stabilizers are functioning within normal parameters." "Check the harmonic readings," Eleanor insisted. "The pattern is there." Sam crossed his arms. "I've been chief engineer on luxury vessels for 15 years. I think I know when something's wrong with my ship." The ship lurched again, harder this time. The lights flickered briefly. "That's just," Sam began. "That's your stabilizer starting to fail," Eleanor cut in. "And we're getting too close to the moon to ignore it." Sam Monroe stared at the display panel, his confident expression fading as he reviewed the readings. The numbers didn't lie. The harmonic pattern Eleanor had identified was clearly visible now, growing stronger with each passing minute. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "We ran all the standard checks before departure." "The standard checks wouldn't catch this," Eleanor explained. "The issue is in the interaction between the gravitational stabilizers and the new propulsion matrix. It only becomes apparent once the system has been running at full power for more than an hour." Sam looked at her with new respect. "How do you know all this?" Before Eleanor could answer, the ship lurched again, more violently this time. Warning lights flashed on several panels. "We can discuss my qualifications later," she said. "Right. Now we need to realign the stabilizers before attempting the lunar orbit maneuver. If we don't, the ship could be torn apart by the gravitational stress." Sam hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "What do you suggest?" "We need to reduce power to 70% and manually recalibrate the starboard stabilizer. It will take about 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Sam looked alarmed. "We're scheduled to begin the orbit maneuver in 15. Then you need to contact the bridge and tell them to delay," Eleanor said firmly. Sam pressed the communication button. "Bridge, this is Monroe in engineering. We have an issue with the stabilizers. Request delay of orbit maneuver." A woman's voice answered. "Engineering, this is Captain Martinez. We have 50 VIP guests expecting a lunar flyby. Mr. Harrington has specifically requested we maintain the schedule." Sam looked at Eleanor, who shook her head firmly. "Captain," Sam replied, "we have identified a serious harmonic imbalance in the starboard gravitational stabilizer. If we proceed with the maneuver as scheduled, we risk catastrophic failure." There was a pause. "Who identified this issue, Chief?" "Monroe?" Sam glanced at Eleanor again. "I have a consultant with me. She seems quite knowledgeable about the systems." "A consultant?" The captain sounded confused. "There's no consultant on the manifest." Victor Harrington's voice cut in. "What's this nonsense about delays, Captain? We have a schedule to maintain and guests to impress." Sam muted the communication. "They're not going to listen." Eleanor thought quickly. "Is there an emergency override?" "Yes, but I'd need authorization from the captain or higher." "Higher than the captain would be the owner of the ship," Eleanor said. "Or someone with owner-level clearance codes." Sam laughed nervously. "Well, unless you happen to be best friends with the owner of GNI, we're out of luck." Eleanor reached for the communication panel. "Let me speak to them." Before Sam could stop her, she unmuted the channel. "Captain Martinez, this is Eleanor Wright. I need you to delay the orbit maneuver immediately. There was stunned silence on the line. Then Victor's voice, dripping with disdain. Is this some kind of joke? How did this woman get into engineering? Sir, Sam cut in. The readings confirm. What's she saying? The stabilizer is, I don't care what she's saying, Victor interrupted. Remove her from engineering immediately and proceed as planned. The ship shuddered again, and this time the lights went out completely before emergency. Lighting kicked in. Alarms began to sound throughout the vessel. On the communication channel they could hear panicked voices and the captain trying to maintain order. Eleanor turned to Sam. We're out of time. The stabilizer is failing faster than I anticipated. We need to implement emergency protocol Right 73. Sam's eyes widened. Right 73? That's a proprietary emergency protocol. How do you know about it? Because I wrote it, Eleanor said simply. She stepped to the main console and began entering a complex sequence of commands. This will bypass the standard authorization requirements. The console beeped in response to her input, displaying a message. Right override protocol engaged. Biometric confirmation required. Eleanor placed her palm on the scanner. The screen flashed green. Identity confirmed. Eleanor Wright, security. Clearance Alpha 1. Sam stared at her in disbelief. You really are Eleanor Wright. We can discuss that later too, she replied, already working on the stabilizer controls. Right now, I need you to reduce main engine power to 60% while I realign the gravitational field. Sam jumped into action, his hands flying over the controls. Reducing power now. The communication panel lit up again. Engineering, this is Captain Martinez. What's happening down there? We're losing power and the navigation system is showing us veering off course. Captain, this is Eleanor Wright, she responded calmly. I've initiated emergency protocol Right 73 to prevent a system-wide failure. I need you to maintain current heading but reduce speed. We're working to stabilize the gravitational system. There was a pause before the captain replied, her voice now respectful. Understood, Ms. Wright, maintaining heading and reducing speed. In the background they could hear Victor protesting. Who authorized this? I demand to know what's happening. Captain Martinez's response was firm. Sir, please return to your seat. We have a situation that's being handled through the ship's internal monitoring system. Eleanor and Sam could see the main lounge where the guests were now looking worried. The smooth cruise had turned uncomfortable, with the ship swaying and vibration evident throughout. Allison Pierce was gripping a BIB handrail, her perfect composure slipping. Victor, what's going on? You said the ship was safe. Gregory Duncan looked particularly pale, clutching his drink with white knuckles. Back in engineering, Eleanor and Sam worked methodically to rebalance the gravitational system. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the controls. Sam followed her instructions exactly, impressed by her intimate knowledge of the ship's systems. Harmonic pattern is stabilizing, Sam reported after 10 tense minutes. Vibration reducing. You did it. Eleanor nodded, still focused on the readouts. We're not done yet. We need to reset the navigation parameters for a wider lunar orbit. The stress on the hull has been significant. We can't risk the original close approach. The communication panel activated again. Engineering, Captain Martinez here. The passengers are getting restless. Mr. Harrington is demanding answers. Tell them we had a minor system malfunction that has been corrected, Eleanor replied. We'll be proceeding with the lunar tour, but at a slightly greater distance for safety reasons. Understood. And Ms. Wright, thank you. Eleanor allowed herself a small smile before turning back to Sam. Let's finish running the diagnostics. I want to make sure nothing else is going to surprise us. Sam nodded, watching her with newfound respect. So, you're really the Eleanor Wright, creator of the Wright Propulsion Matrix? Owner of Wright Aerospace Technologies? Yes to the first two, Eleanor replied. As for ownership, it's a bit more complicated than that. The ship was now moving smoothly again, the violent shaking replaced by the gentle hum of properly functioning engines. On the monitors, they could see the guests beginning to relax, though Victor Harrington was engaged in what appeared to be a heated discussion with Captain Martinez. "He doesn't look happy," Sam observed. "He'll be less happy soon," Eleanor said with quiet determination. "Once we're stable, I'd like you to accompany me back to the main lounge. I think it's time I properly introduced myself to our host." Sam grinned. "I wouldn't miss that for all the credits on Mars." Eleanor checked the final readouts. Everything was green. The immediate danger had passed. She took a deep breath and straightened her champagne-stained jumpsuit. "Let's go meet the man who thinks he owns my ship." Eleanor and Sam walked through the corridors of the Celestial Dawn, heading toward the main lounge. Crew members they passed looked at them with curious expressions. Word had spread quickly that someone named Eleanor Wright had saved the ship from disaster. "I still can't believe it," Sam said as they walked. "You're really her, the Eleanor Wright. Your propulsion system designs changed everything in the industry." Eleanor smiled slightly. "I just saw problems that needed solving." "But why are you here like this?" Sam gestured at her stained jumpsuit. "If I owned Wright Aerospace Technologies, I'd be arriving in my own ship, not pretending to be nobody. Sometimes the only way to see the truth is to be invisible," Eleanor replied. "I needed to see how GNI operates when they think no one important is watching." They reached the entrance to the main lounge. Through the door they could hear Victor, Harrington's voice raised in anger. "I don't care what her credentials are, Captain. This is my ship and I will not have some random woman taking control of it." Captain Martinez's response was calm but firm. "Sir, protocol dictates that during an emergency the highest technical authority takes precedence. Ms. Wright's security clearance is Alpha 1. Alpha 1 clearance doesn't exist at GNI, Victor insisted. She's clearly a fraud." Eleanor nodded to Sam and they entered the lounge together. The conversation stopped immediately. All eyes turned to them. Captain Martinez stood near the viewport. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and the composed demeanor of someone used to command. Beside her, Victor Harrington's face was red, with anger. The guests were gathered in small groups, their earlier party mood replaced by nervous tension. "Ms. Wright," Captain Martinez said, stepping forward, "the situation has been explained to our guests. Thank you for your quick action in engineering." Victor snorted. "This woman is not who she claims to be. Eleanor Wright is a reclusive genius who owns one of the largest aerospace companies in the solar system. She wouldn't be caught dead in a mechanic's jumpsuit with champagne stains." Allison Pierce nodded in agreement. "The real Eleanor Wright is worth billions. This is obviously some kind of imposter." Eleanor walked to the center of the room. "Captain Martinez, would you please verify my identity for our host?" The captain nodded. "I've confirmed Ms. Wright's identity through the ship's security system. Her biometric data match the highest clearance profile in our database." "Impossible," Victor sputtered. "There must be a glitch in the system." Eleanor turned to face him directly. "No glitch, Mr. Harrington. I am Eleanor Wright, founder of Wright Aerospace Technologies and the designer of the propulsion system currently powering this vessel." She paused. "I'm also the majority shareholder of Galactic Nautical Industries." A shocked murmur spread through the crowd. "That's a lie," Victor said, but his voice lacked conviction. "GNI is a publicly traded company. No single person owns a majority stake. 75% of GNI shares are owned by Watt Holdings," Eleanor replied calmly. "Watt Holdings is my private investment company." Gregory Duncan pushed through the crowd, his earlier smugness replaced by visible panic. "This is absurd. Eleanor Wright is a scientific legend. She wouldn't waste her time at a party like this." Sam stepped forward. "I just watched her save this ship using proprietary protocols only the designer would know. She's the real deal." Captain Martinez nodded in confirmation. "The emergency protocol she implemented is called Wright 7-3. It's not in any public's documentation. Only someone who created the system would know it." The truth began to sink in. Guests looked at Eleanor with new eyes, seeing beyond the stained jumpsuit to the woman who had designed the very ship they stood in. Victor's face had gone from red to pale. "If what you're saying is true, why are you here like this? Why the Deception? I've been concerned about the direction GNI has taken under your leadership, Eleanor answered. Reports of corners being cut on safety protocols, engineers' concerns being ignored, designs being modified without proper testing. She gestured around the room. Tonight proved those concerns were valid. This ship nearly suffered a catastrophic failure because you prioritized impressing your guests over proper safety procedures. Allison Pierce stepped back from Victor as, if not wanting to be associated with him anymore. Other guests did the same. Gregory looked like he might be sick. About what I said earlier, regarding your designs, I was just planning to steal my work and claim it as your own? Eleanor finished for him. Yes, I heard you quite clearly at dinner. Victor attempted to regain control of the situation. Now, Ms. Wright, if that's really who you are, I'm sure we can discuss any concerns you have in private. There's no need to air company matters in front of our guests. Eleanor turned to Captain Martinez. Captain, please set a course back to the spaceport. The lunar tour is canceled. Yes, Ms. Wright, the captain replied immediately. You can't do that. Victor protested. I'm the CEO of this company, and I'm your boss. Eleanor said simply, as majority shareholder, I have the authority to make operational decisions, and my first decision is that you are relieved of duty, effective immediately. The lounge fell completely silent. Victor stared at her in disbelief. You can't fire me. The board will be meeting tomorrow morning to discuss the future of GNI, Eleanor cut in, including new leadership. She turned to address the rest of the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption to your evening. When we return to Earth, full refunds will be issued for this cruise. In addition, you'll all receive complimentary passes for a future voyage once proper safety standards have been implemented. The guests began talking amongst themselves, many looking at Eleanor with newfound respect. A few approached to introduce themselves properly. Allison Pierce hung back, visibly uncomfortable. When Eleanor glanced her way, she quickly averted her eyes. Gregory Duncan was already retreating toward the exit, no doubt hoping to escape further confrontation. Captain Martinez approached Eleanor. Your orders, Ms. Wright? First, I'd like a full diagnostic of all ships in the GNI fleet. If this vessel has these issues, others might too. I'll begin immediately, the captain promised. Sam stood nearby, grinning widely at the turn of events. What about me? Am I fired too? Eleanor smiled. On the contrary, I'm impressed with how quickly you adapted when presented with new information. That's a valuable quality in an engineer. Victor, who had been standing in stunned silence, finally found his voice again. This isn't over, right? The board won't stand for this hostile takeover. Eleanor looked at him calmly. This isn't a hostile takeover, Mr. Harrington. I've owned controlling interest in GNI for the past 3 years. I simply allowed you to remain as CEO while I evaluated your performance. She paused. Consider tonight your final evaluation. She nodded to Captain Martinez. Captain, please escort Mr. Harrington to his quarters. He's had a difficult evening. As Victor was led away, still protesting, Eleanor turned to Sam. Now, I believe we have some work to do to get this ship safely back to Earth. Right behind you, Sam replied, his respect for her evident in every word. Eleanor Wright, the woman they had all dismissed and mocked just hours before, now stood at the center of the room, firmly in control of not just the Celestial Dawn, but the entire fleet it belonged to, and no one was laughing anymore. 2 weeks after the eventful cruise on the Celestial Dawn, Eleanor Wright stood in her office at Wright Aerospace Technologies headquarters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of Earth below and the busy spaceport traffic. She wore a simple but well-tailored gray suit, comfortable yet professional. On her desk sat the latest financial reports from Galactic Nautical Industries. The changes she had implemented were already showing positive results. The door chimed and her assistant announced the arrival of Olivia Martinez. Send her in, Eleanor said. Captain Martinez, now dressed in a new uniform bearing the combined logos of Watt and GNI, entered the office. "Ms. Wright," she greeted with a respectful nod. "Please call me Eleanor," she replied, gesturing to a chair. "How are the fleet inspections coming along?" Olivia sat down. "We've completed checks on 12 of the 15 vessels, 3 more required. The same stabilizer adjustments as the Celestial Dawn. If they had gone unaddressed, we could have faced serious accidents." Eleanor nodded. "And the crew reassignments? Most have adapted well to the new safety protocols. A few of Victor Harrington's most loyal supporters resigned in protest, but we've replaced them with qualified personnel who understand our new priorities." "Excellent," Eleanor said. "And speaking of Mr. Harrington, has he cleared out his office?" Olivia allowed herself a small smile. "Yes. He wasn't happy about it, but security ensured the process went smoothly. His final statement to the press was colorful." "I can imagine," Eleanor said. "And what about his plans to sue for wrongful termination?" "Our legal team says he doesn't have a case. Your ownership of the company is properly documented, and his neglect of safety protocols gives us more than enough cause for dismissal." The door chimed again, and Sam Monroe entered carrying a tablet. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "The engineering team wanted me to show you the latest modifications to the propulsion system." Eleanor welcomed him with a warm smile. In the 2 weeks since the incident on the Celestial Dawn, Sam had proven to be an invaluable ally in her company reorganization. "Have you made your decision about the job offer?" Eleanor asked him. Sam nodded. "I'd be honored to accept the position of Chief Innovation Officer, though I'm still getting used to the idea of working directly for the Eleanor Wright." "Just Eleanor, please," she reminded him. "And I'm glad to hear it. We need people who can adapt quickly and aren't afraid to admit when they're wrong." Olivia opened her tablet. The press release about the company restructuring has gotten significant attention. The business news networks are calling it the most surprising corporate takeover in recent memory. "It wasn't a takeover," Eleanor corrected. "I already owned the company, I just decided to start running it properly." Sam scrolled through his own tablet. "The stock price jumped 12% when you announced the safety overhaul and new leadership team." Eleanor moved to look out the window. "Money isn't the point. Making safe, reliable spacecraft is." "Speaking of the new leadership team," Olivia said, "the board has unanimously approved your nomination for me as CEO." Eleanor turned back with a pleased expression. "Congratulations, Olivia. You earned it with your quick thinking on the Celestial Dawn." "Thank you," Olivia replied, "though I'm still surprised you don't want the position yourself. I'm better with designs and big-picture strategy than day-to-day management," Eleanor explained. "You'll make a much better CEO than I would." Sam looked up from his tablet. "Have you seen the latest about Gregory Duncan?" Eleanor's expression hardened slightly. "What has he done now?" "Nothing, and that's the point," Sam said with satisfaction. "After word got out about his attempt to steal your designs, no major company will touch him. His reputation is ruined." "Good," Olivia said firmly. "Intellectual theft should have consequences." Eleanor nodded in agreement. "And what about Allison Pierce? I heard her investment firm was trying to acquire shares in WAT." "They were," Sam confirmed. "Until they discovered you're the majority owner. They withdrew their bid immediately." "Apparently, Ms. Pierce told her board that dealing with you would be impossible after the incident," Olivia added with a hint of amusement. Eleanor smiled. "I suppose some people find it difficult to do business with someone they've insulted to their face." The 3 of them shared a laugh, the camaraderie between them evident. "The rechristening ceremony is scheduled for tomorrow," Olivia said, changing the subject. "All preparations are complete." Eleanor nodded. "Good, I'm looking forward to it." The next day, a crowd gathered at the spaceport's main dock. Media representatives, industry leaders, and space travel enthusiasts filled the observation area. On the main platform, Eleanor stood with Olivia and Sam beside the gleaming hull of the former Celestial Dawn. The ship had been repaired, upgraded, and transformed. The gaudy luxury elements had been toned down, replaced with elegant efficiency. The vessel now displayed a new name across its hull: Humble dawn. Eleanor stepped up to the microphone. Camera drones hovered nearby, broadcasting the event across Earth and the lunar colonies. "Thank you all for coming today," she began. 2 weeks ago, this ship nearly experienced a catastrophic failure due to neglected safety protocols and misplaced priorities. Today, it stands as a symbol of our new direction. The crowd listened attentively. Galactic Nautical Industries is no longer just about luxury. It's about building the safest, most reliable vessels in space. Impressive isn't about how many crystal chandeliers you can fit in a dining room. It's about engineering excellence and treating every person who contributes to that goal with respect. She gestured to the newly named ship. The Humble Dawn represents our commitment to these values. Its maiden voyage under new management begins tomorrow. But unlike previous cruises, this journey won't be for wealthy thrill seekers. Instead, we've invited the engineers, mechanics, and service personnel who keep our fleet running. The true innovators who deserve recognition. Applause rippled through the crowd. After the ceremony, Eleanor walked through the ship with Olivia and Sam, inspecting the final preparations. The vessel hummed with perfectly balanced energy. No vibrations, no warning signs. "It feels different," Sam commented as they entered the main lounge, now transformed into a more practical gathering space. "It is different," Eleanor agreed. "Everything that matters has been improved." Olivia received a message on her communication device. "The guest list for tomorrow is confirmed. Full capacity." "Any word from our former CEO?" Sam asked with a grin. Olivia nodded. "Victor Harrington sent a formal request to be included. I denied it, of course." "Last I heard, he was trying to get backing for a new venture," Eleanor said. "Not having much luck, though. Investors have become surprisingly concerned about safety records lately." They completed their inspection and stood at the observation window, looking out at the stars. "When I founded Wright Aerospace Technologies, I wanted to build ships that would take humanity further into space," Eleanor said quietly. "Somewhere along the way, companies like GNI lost sight of that mission. They became about status and luxury instead of exploration and innovation." "And now?" Sam asked. "Now we get back to what matters," Eleanor replied. "We build ships worthy of the stars." As the sun rose over Earth the next morning, the Humble Dawn prepared for departure. Its passenger manifest included no celebrities, no wealthy investors, no social elites. Instead, it carried the people who made space travel possible, the dedicated workers whose contributions had gone unrecognized for too long. And at the helm stood Eleanor Wright, no longer invisible, but leading by example. The woman they had once mocked on a $200 million yacht now owned not just the whole fleet but the future of space travel itself.